Hey everyone, hope that you're having a beautiful day so far. My name is Robin. Thanks so much for tuning into this channel. Really appreciate it. So, I have someone asking a bit more about like light language and things like that. Let's see if I can get some light happening here. Here, that works a little better. Say hello if you're watching, please. Appreciate it. All right, lighting's not going to be perfect here. Maybe I can. All right. Anyway, you can see me enough. So light language. Light language is a really interesting. Okay, I'm going to be in and out of light. That's okay. So it's interesting because we're talking about light. Light language is a really weird experience. The first time I experienced it, I believe, was in an SAC class, which is Spiritual Alignment Connection. And what was happening was I had my eyes closed and somebody was working on me, and I would start, it was like I was speaking in tongue. It would be like along the lines of that. And it kind of frightened me a little bit because I'm thinking, oh, I don't know if I like this feeling. It was like I thought at the time going into like past life energy. But as I'm learning more about this, I realized that I'm actually going into higher dimensions. And so we start learning, I guess, what it went with light language, more about light codes and transmission, ascension, activation, knowledge that our soul has, things like sacred geometry, symbols, drawings, just beautiful wisdom, and that things that your soul is kind of craving. So this recently happened to me. I'm just checking on my time because I have a call here. But this recently happened to me. I was actually going to get my vaccination. I was really nervous about it, so I started doing healing on myself. So I'm driving in the truck, and then all of a sudden, as I'm in my records and that sort of thing, I start doing light language, and it just felt like I was, and also mudras are a part of light language sometimes as well. You doing things with your hands. So I'm kind of like doing things with my hands and activating this language, which is kind of like animals make sounds in order to communicate, and plants work with the element of senses. So it's like activates your senses, and sounds start to come out. And it's not, of course, our original language that we were taught, because this is related to like higher dimensions, so not quite where we are here. And so when we do things like astral travel, we can shift over into other spaces and connect with light beings that we can also communicate with that way. And we can also, when we astral travel, we can connect with ancestors. We can basically connect with anything we want. It's taking ourselves out of this current space. But when it comes to light language, my first experience in the Akashic Records was actually at the very beginning of my program. And as you continue to learn, you start to look back and be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. But I actually took my pen and started like writing and drawing symbols backwards. It was like in a different language. Now, I didn't really understand what light language was, so I just thought this was, once again, like past life energy of like being Asian or something like that, because I do know that I was Korean before. I know I lived in Singapore, so this makes sense to me. But what I realized now was that I was in this space. I was really activating more like light language. And I remember my teacher saying, you're really going to enjoy that part of the class. But I forgot to kind of refer it back. And then I had another experience not that long ago. Well, I have a lot of experiences, but one that stands out to me was I was laying in bed and I was starting to see sacred geometry, starting to see like pyramids, and also like hearing words related to that. And again, that I just go straight back to, I know I've also experienced living in Egypt before. So again, this can trigger like old knowledge that you already have. But then I'm starting to realize, okay, this sacred geometry that I'm seeing is also part of light language. So it comes in different forms. It's not just through sound. So just pay close attention to that as well if you're feeling activated. The other thing too, as a practitioner, when you're offering someone else healing, and when you go into accessing or activating light language, and there's a transmission portion, which is basically the person is able to connect to and receive what you're offering them, then it's more of a deep soul connection, and they're going to understand it on a soul level. Okay. And actually, when I was practicing with a girl named Mary in my class, we both started speaking in light language back and forth. And it was really interesting, and you kind of want to judge it. But the way that we get into this space is actually being the complete opposite, not judging, raising our vibration, being super relaxed. I also called in my Akashic records and did some healing on myself. I did a yoga class just by myself, and then I did a wonderful guided meditation. And while I was listening to this guided meditation, all of a sudden I'm going into light language, and it was like continuous. It was like firing out of me, and this was for a good couple minutes. So I actually did record myself, because I'm like, okay, this is so strange. Like, I almost don't want to share it, but at the same time, now that I'm learning more about it, I'm realizing that's quite powerful to share. So when I was teaching my Akashic Records program last time, when we did light language, I actually do a lot of it in the class for longer than 2 minutes. It was just, I couldn't stop. And so the other day when I was driving in the truck, when this was happening, for me, it was very therapeutic. And so that's what we start to realize, is there's a lot of like knowledge, I guess, that's coming through as well. So you feel like you're really getting a lot out of it by actually being able to do it, I find. So it really just happens, I think, naturally. And so if we force ourselves sometimes for this to happen, it's not as I find effective. Everything has to kind of flow with that. But I felt like, I do have a call in a minute, but I felt like sharing that because a lot of people don't know what light language is. If you purchase my old Akashic Records program, the one that I already completed, it's completely different than this one, by the way. So if you want to do both, purchase both, you can. But it's $2.99 actually for the Akashic Records program that I already have recorded. And in that video, you'll be able to hear me doing light language, and it'll make more sense to you. But light language is when one is tapped into higher consciousness. Language is expanded to tones, hand gestures, which are like mudras, sacred geometry, and more. It's seen as the mother of all languages, and we're hitting the higher dimensional realms. So again, in my Akashic Records program, I'm going to be teaching more about the astral travel portion of it. And so which is why it sounds like nothing we were taught. So it can be tones, symbols, gestures, and drawings, which happened to me. I was writing out symbols, and I also seeing things in my third eye, okay? So it can trigger the activation of one's kundalini or DNA by listening. And so it can be like almost, it's like I feel like you're ticking. So kundalini is very like all this like energy just kind of like swirling in you, and it can seem quite intense, but I find it pretty amazing. So it's not like it's a very like almost out of body experience, I find. So it's a very high frequency. So this is how you can help others develop more knowledge. So that was really all I wanted to share. But the key thing is it can shift our perspective. And absolutely it did for me recently when this was happening as I was driving. I was like, oh, it just made me feel like way better about the situation that I was in. And I stayed in my records while I was experiencing this thing that I had a fear of, and it was really amazing and quite powerful. And I really just trusted in that experience. So these are really helpful healing tools. If you'd like to learn more, you can book a free session with me, and we can discuss kind of like how I can help you more, whether it's in a program or a session. Bye for now. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care.